On this Monday night, Russia is promising to retaliate after Canada and other Western countries told Russian diplomats to get out. More than 100 diplomats expelled in the biggest such move since the Cold War. Many are believed to be intelligence officers or spies. And so the question, what exactly were they doing here?
Also tonight, a special report tracking an alleged serial killer. What we know about Bruce MacArthur and where the investigation is going next. The National starts now.
We begin with a resounding slap in the face to Russia over its suspected poisoning of a former spy on British soil. Canada is expelling 4 Russian diplomats and rejecting the credentials of 3 more. It's part of an international wave that has made history with its sheer size. The scale of this diplomatic brush-off is impressive. The UK led the way by expelling 23 Russians. Other EU countries are kicking out 33. The US, though, has landed the biggest blow with 60. Ukraine, Russia's besieged neighbor, is expelling 13, and other countries, including Canada, at least another 4, as we said, rejecting the credentials of 3 others. It represents an increasingly unified front against an increasingly isolated Russia, and the U.S. is front and center this time, which is in line with U.S. policy, we think. Keith Bogue tries to decode the mixed messages from the White House.
Britain calls it the first offensive use of a nerve agent on European soil since the foundation of NATO and the European Union, and a warning to Europe of the increasing aggressiveness of Russia under President Vladimir Putin. Yeah. So it was natural that Britain's Prime Minister would take the lead in reprisals, as she did 12 days ago. Now, though, her strongest allies are standing with her.
And this is the largest collective expulsion of Russian intelligence officers in history.
All over Europe and in North America, scores of Russian intelligence officers were sent packing today. 60 of those are being expelled from the United States, including a dozen the U.S. says have been actively involved in espionage that threatens national security.
Who was behind this, Mr. President?
President Trump has said almost from the beginning that he believes Russia was behind the nerve gas attack in Salisbury.
It certainly looks like the Russians were behind it, something that should never, ever happen.
But just last week, he spoke to President Putin and never mentioned the attack.
I had a call with President Putin and congratulated him on the victory, his electoral victory.
Congratulating Putin is something Trump's staff explicitly advised him not to do. But Trump seems keen to keep an open mind about Putin.
I suspect that we'll probably be meeting in the not-too-distant future.
So how do you square the aggressive actions that the administration is taking with an entirely different approach from the president?
The answer to that question did not clear up much.
We want to have a cooperative relationship. The president wants to work with Russia, but their actions sometimes don't allow that to happen. The poisoning in the UK that has kind of led to today's announcement was a very brazen action. It was a reckless action.
It's not the first time the Trump administration has taken a harder line on Russia than the president himself. And that has raised questions about whether the president is driving national security policy, and if not, who is. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Washington.
The Russians have called the move provocative and say they will respond. Now, as we mentioned, Canada expelled some Russian officials today, too, and identified at least some of them as Russian spies. Catherine Cullen is digging into that story for us tonight.
Any comment on Vladimir Putin's re-election?
Who's the nail-biter?
From pointed sarcasm a week ago to suggestions of spies in our midst today, Canada is kicking out 4 Russian diplomats and denying the applications of 3 more. The most remarkable part? This in a statement from Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister. The 4 have been identified as intelligence officers or individuals who have used their diplomatic status to undermine Canada's security or interfere in our democracy. And what were these intelligence officers up to exactly? The government won't say.
Were these SVR officers that you're deporting, sir?
That's an operational matter. I wouldn't comment.
What did they do exactly?
You know, I can't comment about operational security matters.
What did they do? What did the Russians do?
The statement stands on its own, but obviously for national security reasons, I can't get into details.
So we turn to a former director of Canada's spy agency for answers.
Does that surprise you at all that there were
and presumably still are Russian spies in Canada?
No, not at all. The Russians really have never reduced the number of intelligence officers they've been posting into Canada for a long time.
In fact, 30 years ago, Canada expelled 17 Soviet diplomats over allegations of industrial espionage.
Spying is not, yes, we regard it as illegal, but the reality is it's not uncommon, and many nations do it.
How many countries might have diplomats here who are actually intelligence officers?
Oh, quite a few.
Dozen?
Quite a few.
As for the Russians, the embassy here in Canada is calling the expulsions highly deplorable and outrageous, adding, "This unfriendly move under false and biased pretext delivers yet another serious blow to Russian-Canadian relations and will be met with resolve and reciprocity," meaning a few Canadian diplomats in Russia may well expect to be shown the door soon too. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, the practice of expelling diplomats came of age in the Cold War, and at times it has seemed to spiral into a big game of tit for tat.
Americans say they think there are too many spies in our United Nations mission. We can say that, in our opinion, there are too many spies in the American embassy in Moscow.
In 1986, the U.S. expelled 25 Soviet diplomats. Russia responded with 5 expulsions, and the U.S. fired back with another 55. This can take a toll on real diplomatic work. In 1985, when the U.K. was engaged in a similar back and forth, the British ambassador complained the Soviets were picking off his Russian-speaking staff. "Never engage in a pissing match with a skunk," he wrote. He possesses important natural advantages. So tonight, as a wave of international condemnation crashes down on Russia, the impetus is clearly on them to make the next move.
But it was the death of 64 people, many of them children, that dominated headlines in that country today. Russia is both seething and mourning over that horrific mall fire we told you about last night. It's hard to sum up what people must be feeling in that city where the fire broke out. Shock gave way to action as residents lined up to give blood. But the pain was palpable, with a vigil for the dead stretching into the night. They were victims who, as Chris Brown reports, never stood a chance.
1 minute, everyone in the Kemerova Mall's children's play area appears to be having fun. The next, it's sheer terror, as out of nowhere, fire races through. In just seconds, thick black smoke makes it impossible to breathe. "Mama, Mama, we can't get out," screams a child. There were apparently no alarms or announcements. A security guard apparently turned both off. The mall would have been packed with families enjoying the first weekend of spring break. There was a whole class of 11-year-olds, said a friend of one of the victims. They were all in the movie theater. The teacher phoned and said, "There's smoke. We can't find anyone. All the doors are closed." Other exit doors were locked and couldn't be broken open. And incredibly, some say security guards blocked escape for others. My daughter and a friend were stopped by guards at 2 fire escapes, she says. They finally managed to dive through the legs of fire crews coming up the stairs. 11-year-old Sergei Masalenko had gone to the mall with his parents and sister. He crawled out a window and hung on for dear life before his arms gave out. He survived and is in hospital with serious injuries, but the rest of his family perished. Other trapped children reached for their phones in their last moments. 13-year-old Maria Moroz texted, "We're burning. I love all of you. Perhaps this is goodbye." She died in hospital this morning. Inspectors have already concluded major safety deficiencies are to blame for the horrible loss of life, and it's hard not to compare this tragedy to what happened in the city of Perm 9 years ago, when 153 people died in a nightclub fire. Investigators concluded officials were paid off to skip safety inspections. Today, critics on Russian TV were blaming corruption for this latest tragedy too.
A statement from the Kremlin today made no mention of accountability, just that Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to the families of the victims. As for what caused the fire, possibly an electrical fault or even someone lighting a piece of foam in the children's play area on fire, are 2 of the leading theories. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
Now, a moment ago, you heard Chris refer to that nightclub fire in Perm in 2009. Well, there have been several others since, also shining a light on the state of mental health care in that country. Let me show you what I mean. April 2013, a nighttime fire at a psychiatric hospital north of Moscow killed 38 patients. There were bars on the windows, and many of the victims had been on sedatives. Months later, another psychiatric home, another overnight fire, more sedatives. It was also in a wooden building that had failed a fire safety check earlier that year. And in 2015, 23 residents of a care home died, again in a wooden building flagged as unsafe. Every person who died had physical or mental disabilities. But Rosie, in this latest fire in Siberia, there was a lot that went wrong, not just one thing, but several, and the race will be on to check other shopping malls to make sure the same thing won't happen again elsewhere.
Just terrifying. Still a lot of unanswered questions, Andrew, for authorities on a story that we brought you last night. More fallout from that investigation calls into the question of legitimacy of the Brexit referendum, in fact. And a Canadian company is at the centre of the political controversy in the UK.
That Vote Leave couldn't have won without the work of AIQ.
AIQ, or Aggregate IQ, is the data firm from Victoria, BC that worked for the pro-Brexit campaign ahead of the vote to leave the European Union.
It's about the integrity of our democratic process, and it's about ensuring that we can have trust in a result for something that will have a profound impact on this country.
Today, whistleblower Christopher Wiley presented a 53-page legal argument he says proves Vote Leave spent more money than it was allowed. He alleges the campaign used some of that money to pay AIQ for digital advertising through a third party, a move that, if true, could break UK's campaign spending law.
If we start to allow cheating, then it's a slippery slope.
Vote Leave dismisses the allegations, and AIQ says it has never knowingly been involved in any illegal activity and complies with all regulations in countries where it works. But fallout is already hitting the UK Parliament. Two Vote Leave officials named by the whistleblowers now work as advisors to Theresa May. Another two of her cabinet ministers acted as the faces of the main Brexit campaign.
The people that led these campaigns are now senior cabinet members, and I think we need to make sure that they were not aware of what was going on, and that's why I think the resources are needed. And if needs be, the police should be resourced to investigate as well.
UK's referendum watchdog is investigating the claims, and tomorrow the British Parliament will hold an emergency debate. But whatever the result of that or the investigation into Vote Leave's activities, the government is clear. There won't be a rerun of the referendum.
For whether people voted Leave or Remain, many are frankly tired of the old arguments and the attempts to refight the referendum over the past year. With a year to go, people are coming back together and looking forward. They want us to get on with it, and that's what we're going to do. And I commend this statement.
Meanwhile, Facebook is coming under more fire today after information belonging to about 50 million users was allegedly used without permission by a UK consulting firm. Today, the agency that oversees consumer protection in the U.S. announced it's launched an investigation. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, said in a statement it is firmly and fully committed to using all of its tools to protect the privacy of consumers. Foremost among these tools is enforcement action against companies that fail to honor their privacy promises. The FTC says it takes very seriously recent press reports raising substantial concerns about the privacy practices of Facebook and has opened a non-public probe. Well, that news sent Facebook shares tumbling, though they did bounce back by the end of the day. Still, the social media giant is scrambling to regain the trust of its users and its advertisers. More companies have announced they will be pulling their ads from the platform. And Jacqueline Hansen has more on what that could mean for Facebook's future.
Lisa Matam spends thousands of dollars each month advertising her skincare line on Facebook. But now she's pulling back, concerned over Facebook's values.
I want to make sure through everything that we do, who we work with, who we collaborate with, the choices that we make, for us specifically, we're eco-friendly, we use biorenewable ink, we do all of these things to make sure that we sustain the values of our organization.
she's not alone. Other major companies are also taking action by suspending ads. Among them, Mozilla, the owner of the Firefox web browser, Pep Boys Auto Parts, a major German bank, and a wireless speaker maker. It's unclear how much money Facebook will lose on all those accounts, but advertising is at the heart of its business. Most of the money Facebook brought in last year was from advertising, about $40 billion. If some users limit how much information they share because of this privacy breach, Facebook may lose some of its edge.
The richness of information that Facebook will have on each one of these users will be lower. When that information is of lower quality, advertisers won't pay as much for it.
Still, it will take a lot to truly shake Facebook's position as a social media giant. Its stock wiped away 8 months of gains in the last week, but it's still up 10% over the past year.
The reality is that there are a lot of businesses, a lot of people that rely on Facebook to do business, to connect with their family and friends, to keep up with the world. And I find it highly unlikely that that's going to stop tomorrow or anytime soon.
For Matam, a decision on whether to pull more of her ads on Facebook isn't easy.
As a small business, how do I continue to get that reach if not by social media and if not by an investment like Facebook or Instagram?
But it's a risk Matam may feel she needs to take. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, the dollars and cents aside, without users, Facebook is nothing. And with the hashtag #DeleteFacebook trending in recent weeks, a new survey from the Angus Reid Institute sought to find out whether Canadians are thinking about taking some sort of action. And nearly 3/4 of those surveyed said they are planning on changing how they use Facebook. Now, that includes everything from double-checking their privacy settings to getting rid of Facebook altogether. But when it comes to that most extreme course of action, ditching Facebook, that may be a tall order, given how intertwined it's become with daily life. So we set up our red chair, had you take a seat, and asked a very simple question.
Okay, where do I look?
Would you delete your Facebook account?
I'd say no, not really.
I use my Facebook account to keep in touch with family and friends.
Would you delete your Facebook account? Okay, well...
I've got issues with my Facebook account.
No, I would never delete my Facebook account.
Yes, I would.
I don't think so. I'm not quite ready to delete it yet because I like the social aspect of it.
I can't because I'm in school, so it's useful with like Facebook groups of people coming together for certain classes and courses and stuff, but after that, probably.
Everyone is on Facebook. That's like one of my main modes of communication, and I get a lot of my news from Facebook.
Yes, I would. Yeah, not a problem. To give myself a break of social media.
You kind of just have, I guess, faith in Facebook that they're actually keeping private. Kids my age, we don't really think about the actual consequences of if it's not private and what can happen to it.
And Rosie, you know, that's a really interesting question, right? Because I think everybody understands on some level that privacy ought to be protected in some way, but then, yeah, to throw Facebook out the window, that's something else.
Yeah, there's a trade-off that you have to sort of evaluate for yourself. What are you willing to give up, knowing that maybe your privacy won't be as tight or secure as you like? Anyway, interesting.
Tricky balance. Here's what else we're working on tonight. A new tool for those on the front lines of the opioid crisis. The federal government wants patients to have better access to heroin and methadone.
And a step toward reconciliation today in the House of Commons. We'll show you the powerful moment.
And as the investigation into Toronto's alleged serial killer continues, police are taking a hard look at the life of Bruce McArthur. And tonight, so are we.
You grew up with the guy, and it freaks you out. You just can't imagine him doing something like that because he wouldn't get into trouble at school with us.
New details about the life and suspected crimes of the accused serial killer coming up in the national documentary.
We
hope the settlement package will bring comfort.
It's news thousands of First Nations Canadians have been waiting to hear. A compensation package for every student of residential schools. $10,000 to start and $3,000 more for every year a victim stayed in the institutions. As many as 86,000 former students across the country may be eligible for payments under this plan.
It's a good news for the survivors. It's good news for the older people who are, don't have to put them through this long, tedious, legalistic process. This is one that is more friendly, and hopefully that'll speed up the settlement.
Beginning in 1928, First Nations children were sent far from home to residential schools scattered throughout Canada. At its peak, there were 82 that operated in Canada. A story of that experience is one of sorrow, separation, loss of culture and identity, physical and sexual abuse. The compensation package brings good news for many, but not everyone stands to qualify.
I feel, personally, that we should be included in there.
Jerry Cheesy attended Grandin College. It was an elite college operated by the Catholic Church to educate promising First Nation students. Entrance to Grandin College was done by careful selection. Those like Cheesy, who were handpicked, don't qualify for any financial compensation. He says this is unfair and that he should be treated like other survivors.
Because it impacted our lives tremendously. One, we're away from our family, we're away from our community. Because we're in this institution, we didn't get to practice our languages and our culture. And plus, in a deeper, more human way, we became dysfunctional with our own families.
Right now, without a special exemption, it's against the law for a family doctor to treat an opioid addiction with methadone. It's like morphine, but stronger, effective in battling addiction, but tough to get. So today, the Canadian government announced a change.
We recognize that for some general practitioners or family doctors, applying for the exemption just becomes another barrier for them, let's say, and oftentimes they just don't have the time.
So the health minister is slashing red tape, removing the need for that exemption, and boosting funding. The changes would also affect prescription heroin, something you'd normally have to go to a hospital to get. The minister says that needs to be more readily available in the community. And as Susan Lunn shows us, those on the front lines agree.
They get their clean supplies. We have needles, ties, cookers.
This supervised drug injection site opened last fall. Since then, staff have overseen up to 250 injections a day.
I was surprised. I didn't realize that it was such a big problem, that there was such a large amount of people that were coming in and using. I didn't realize that people were using like up to 5 times a day, if not more.
People who come here can get more than clean supplies.
Then we have a little relaxation area where we're able to connect with our clients and speak to them about different options that they might be wanting to talk to us about.
One of those options is a program that gives people clean opioids to replace street drugs.
It saved my life. It saved my life because I died twice.
Ricky Belanger used to live on these streets. She was one of the first people to go into the program 7 months ago.
So since I've been on that program, I've been an overdose, and like I said, I don't do any other drugs, I follow my program.
That program has so far had to use the opioid Dilaudid because there are no restrictions to prescribe it. Under the new federal rules, methadone will be easier to prescribe. Prescription heroin will also become an option.
There are differences, and we'll be able to select, when appropriate, the right medication.
The government is also spending nearly $19 million to deal with the prejudice people face when they have an addiction, a problem Davidson sees all the time.
When we first opened, we've seen the effects then because people were a bit hesitant to come talk to us about whatever issues they were dealing with.
Countering those negative attitudes, Davison says, will bring even more people here to get the help they need. Susan Lunn, CBC News, Ottawa.
So just how many Canadians are taking methadone? Well, according to the stats, the numbers are soaring. at least in Ontario, rather. The number of patients has jumped to more than 50,000. That's 16 times higher than it was 20 years ago. But get this, more than half of that methadone is prescribed by just 57 doctors. And that raises questions about how that treatment's being spread out. They'd like to see more doctors offering more treatment options.
Coming up, taking you inside dramatic moments at Canada's busiest illegal border crossing. Meet the photographer who turned migrant stories into a virtual reality experience.
And set your PVR for a new season of old shows. From Murphy Brown to The X-Files to Roseanne, nostalgia is back.
It's going to be a fantastic show, and I think right now in this day and age, it's something that we need to see again.
Dr. David Suzuki's book, The Introduction to Genetic Analysis, is still one of the world's most widely used textbooks on genetics. But he spends most of his time running around not only this country but the planet, trying to save it, trying to figure out ways to get our attention so that we might pay a little bit more attention to our future. In fact, he goes to great lengths. He goes to great lengths. This is David Suzuki on the cover of a television magazine, covered only with a fig leaf. Is this really you?
That is me, I'm afraid.
That's the body?
Yeah, being an old man.
You're in great shape.
Thank you.
What are you doing, working out every day?
I do work out. Not every day, but I do work out.
What's the secret? You must have
There's
the
no
secret
secret.
of
There's no
perpetual
secret.
life. Do you?
Because one is over 60, it doesn't mean you have to just fall apart.
Yeah. This mission of yours has literally been lifelong. Take us way back, because I don't know how many people know that as a kid you were interned in a war camp in this country.
The irony is that, well, I'm a third-generation Canadian. My grandparents emigrated here early in this century, and they were boat builders in Vancouver. My mother and father were both born in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And of course, like 20-some-odd thousand other Japanese Canadians, we were interned. The irony to me, though, is that we were interned in a valley called the Slocan Valley. And many people, I'm sure, know it now as the place where Valhalla Provincial Park is.
Right.
Well, that was my playground as a boy.
Yeah.
And because this had all happened so suddenly, there were about 15,000 Japanese Canadians in this valley, and we're in these little shacks. There were no teachers. I went, we were rounded up when I was 6. And I didn't go to school until I was almost 8. So you can imagine for a kid in this paradise.
This was heaven.
Yeah. So that for me was a really formative time. The irony, of course, is that while we were in the camps, a very important experiment was done at Rockefeller University, which was the first definitive proof that DNA is the genetic material. Yeah. That came out in 1944. So I find it an interesting conjunction that while we were imprisoned for reasons of racism based on the idea that if you're Japanese, doesn't matter whether you're second or third generation.
You must
can't
be a
be
bad
trusted.
guy. Yeah.
It's a genetic trait of our race. While we were undergoing that, in fact, the beginning of this genetic revolution was actually happening.
But you didn't know that then. I mean, even
No.
as a kid, you thought maybe if you went and got your eyes fixed, you wouldn't
Well,
be...
the terrible aspect of that is the sense of self-hatred. And I can remember when we moved to Ontario, when I had to walk down the street with my family, I would always lag way behind because I didn't want to be seen with my parents or my sisters who were Japanese, right? Of course, every time I looked in the mirror, I hated it because you can't deny these eyes, and I wanted to save my money and have an eye operation and get my hair dyed and all of that
Fortunately,
stuff.
you put it to better use.
Well, I guess the problem is I think it's a kind of sickness when you, at the age of 63, are still trying to prove to Canadians that you're a worthwhile human being. You know, I mean, my kind of drive is, I'm sure, has its roots in that sense of being an outsider and wanting to prove that I can be trusted and that I can be.
Is that why you took on science? It has in our world, of course, science is fact and science is truth. It's like mathematics. It's not like you're a philosopher or, you know, all of that. That this was the way that people would not be able to challenge you. You'd say, here's how it happened.
No, it was really a happenstance thing. I loved biology. I wanted to be an entomologist. I wanted to study insects. When I was a kid, I used to collect insects.
president strongly, clearly, and has consistently denied these underlying claims, and the only person who's been inconsistent is the one making the claims.
Tonight on The National, a denial from the White House and an escalating legal battle over Stormy Daniels' alleged affair with Donald Trump. After her tell-all interview on 60 Minutes, today the adult film star sued the U.S. president's personal lawyer for defamation. She says Michael Cohen damaged her reputation by implying that she lied about what happened with Trump. Daniels says she was threatened to keep quiet after trying to tell her story.
What we're gonna be doing, I'm gonna take pages.
An investigation is underway in the Greater Toronto Area after this woman was filmed ripping pages from the Quran and putting them on car windshields. It happened last week at 2 Islamic centers in Mississauga. A man who was with her filmed her as she ripped those pages, making Islamophobic comments. Police say they would like to speak with the woman involved, but so far no charges have been laid. Lots of speculation tonight over whether this could be North Korean leader Kim Jong-un traveling through the streets of Beijing. There's been no formal word of a state visit, but the large motorcade and the arrival of a train in Beijing that looks like one used by Kim's father, it's all fueling rumors he may be there to meet with Chinese leaders. If he is, this would be Kim's first trip outside North Korea as leader. He's expected to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump in May.
It's been more than 2 weeks since the last police update on a chilling murder investigation. Chilling because an accused serial killer was under the radar for so long. When Bruce McArthur was arrested in January, Canadians were shocked as grim details began to emerge. This case is going to heat up again soon. So we asked Joanna Romiliotis to pull together all she's learned about the suspect and the trail of murder police are still tracking.
It's a serial killer, alleged serial killer.
The investigation into Bruce McArthur is unprecedented.
We've never seen anything quite like this.
Unimaginable.
The bodies are from large planters.
Unrelenting.
I would say it's going to go into the years.
From small-town obscurity to big city infamy, the road is hardly obvious. Woodville, Ontario is the quiet farming community where Bruce McArthur grew up. Where in the 1950s, he attended a one-room schoolhouse, now refurbished into a home. Ronald McEachern was in his workshop when he heard the news about his former classmate.
You grew up with the guy and it freaks you out.
Back then, McEachern says, Bruce McArthur was the kid who never got into trouble.
I just remember him being a tattletale to the teacher. That's all I can remember of him. I just can't imagine him doing something like that because he wouldn't get into trouble at school with us when we were doing shit we weren't supposed to be, so.
Police have spoken to McEachern and others from McArthur's past to trace the life trajectory of an accused serial killer. It continues here. In the 1960s, McArthur goes to high school in nearby Fenelon Falls. It's where he meets his future wife. Soon after they graduate in 1970, they leave the area. It's not clear where the McArthurs go, but by the mid-80s, they settle into a suburban home in Oshawa and raise a daughter and son.
All the stuff we have in the database coming in for the DNA.
Those decades are now under intense police scrutiny for the grim reason most serial killers begin killing when they're young. Detective Sergeant Hank Idsinga is in charge of the McArthur investigation.
We're looking at occurrences from the 1970s where he would have been in his mid-20s, mid to late 20s. You know, as a generality, you can say that people don't start this when they're in their 60s. We are definitely looking, yes.
The late 90s and early 2000s is when McArthur's past life as a suburban husband and father starts to unravel. McArthur declares bankruptcy. His marriage falls apart, Shortly after, he becomes a regular in Toronto's gay village and moves into an apartment in the city. A dark side emerges. In 2001, MacArthur is charged with assault after attacking a man with an iron pipe. He turns himself in. At his sentencing hearing, 2 years later, the court hears he suffers from depression. MacArthur tells the judge his life has been kind of a mess, not knowing what's going to happen and what happened to me. MacArthur doesn't go to jail, but the conditions of his release include staying away from the gay village for 2 years. The judge's parting remarks now seem chilling. It sounds to me like you're a pretty good person, and it sounds to me like you're not going to be back here anyway. Of course, MacArthur would be back in court, but only years after his first alleged victim went missing. Years after rumors started swirling that a serial killer was stalking the gay village. September 2010, the disappearances begin. First, Skanda Navaratnam, then Abdul Basir Faizi. 2 years later, Majid Kayhan. Police set up a task force, Project Houston, to find any links between the missing men. They find none, but MacArthur is hiding in plain sight. He even gets questioned by police for an unrelated matter, reportedly an alleged assault. Meanwhile, the disappearances continue. In 2015, Saroush Mahmoudi is reported missing by his family. In April 2017, Salim Essen disappears. A couple of months later, so does Andrew Kinsman. Police create another task force, Project Prism. Again, it ends with no hard proof and no talk of a serial killer.
We're human beings. Of course, are we thinking, is that a possibility? Yes, it's a possibility. But it would be reckless of me to come out and say, perhaps there's a serial killer, unless I have evidence that there is a serial killer.
No evidence, but police are increasingly suspicious. And what they don't say publicly at this point is that Bruce MacArthur is on their radar and has been under surveillance for the last 3 months. While police are watching him, they spot a man arriving to meet MacArthur for a sexual encounter. Fearing for his safety, they move in and find the man in restraints. That's when, finally, police make an arrest, nearly 8 years after men started disappearing.
This morning at approximately 10:25 a.m., police arrested 66-year-old Bruce MacArthur of the City of Toronto. He has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in relation to Mr. Kinsman and Mr. Essen. And we believe he is responsible for the deaths of other men who have yet to be identified. In other words, we believe there are other victims.
Police reveal MacArthur had relations with both men. Detectives won't say how they linked MacArthur to those murders, but they had already seized his van. MacArthur had sold it to this auto parts dealer outside the city. Police also had a list of MacArthur's landscaping clients and had some of those locations under surveillance, including this Toronto home that would become ground zero. Forensic teams also begin to scour MacArthur's apartment and his digital footprint. Soon, they find more evidence. 11 days after his arrest, MacArthur is charged with 3 more counts of first-degree murder. The total is now 5.
These new charges are in relation to the murders of Majid Kayhan, Saroush Mahmoudi, and Dean Lissowick.
Most of the men MacArthur is accused of killing are among the same men police had been looking for years before. Except one, Dean Lissowick, a homeless man who was never even reported missing. Police now openly say what they had suspected for years and what had been feared all along.
It's a serial killer, alleged serial killer. He's taken some steps to cover his tracks.
But not well enough, and the details are horrific. Over the next week and a half, police find 6 sets of dismembered skeletal remains in the planters at a Toronto home where MacArthur stored his landscaping tools. But at this point, the lead detective can only put a name to one of them.
We've identified some of the body parts as belonging to one of the victims whom we charge Mr. MacArthur with the murder of, and that's Andrew Kinsman.
Meanwhile, a twisted portrait of MacArthur begins to emerge. The mall Santa, the doting grandfather, the voracious thrill seeker who was on several dating apps, including ones geared to rough sex. Peter Skromo had known MacArthur for years as a friend, but last spring after drinks, they shared an intimate encounter that suddenly became violent.
So we were kissing, and kissing turned into some petting. He undid my shirt, he undid his shirt. Then he grabbed me by the neck, and well, first by the head, and kind of pushed me down to his crotch. It wasn't quite there, and kind of popped back up, and then he really grabbed my neck, violently twisted it. I literally thought one more second he would have snapped and broken my neck, and I was a dead man.
Skromo managed to free himself, but after MacArthur's arrest, more eerily similar and disturbing stories continue to surface. Jeffrey Davis knew one of the victims and has heard other survivor stories.
It was choking. My friend was being choked by Bruce.
Davis is a local designer who's lived in the community for years. Two friends had frightening experiences with MacArthur. Both have since spoken with police.
I think the part that was really killing our community the most was the unknowing and the apparent, well, it wasn't even apparent, it was the perceived lack of care from Toronto Police Services.
Amid the grief, that simmering resentment lingers. That police didn't take the disappearances seriously enough, that lives could have been spared. All while the horror continues to grow. Back at ground zero of the investigation, evidence is building. And with every police update, a gruesome, rising tally of body parts and murder charges.
It's very disturbing.
A month after his arrest, police charged MacArthur for a sixth murder, for the death of Skanda Navaratnam. Police identify his remains, as well as the remains of another victim, Sarush Mahmoudi.
6 people in the planters. We've been through all of the planters that we have seized. We haven't found any other remains.
Words spoken too soon. Just 10 days later, police find a 7th set of remains in those same planters and take the extraordinary step of releasing a photo of a dead man.
I do not want to release this picture, and I'm doing so as a last resort.
They don't know who he is, but believe he is another victim.
How extraordinary is it for you to put a photo like this up at a news conference?
I've never done this, and I do it with great hesitation.
Sources tell CBC News the photo was just one in a cache of images of MacArthur's alleged victims that he kept on his computer. Police hope to identify the man so they can lay another murder charge. The tally now, 6 charges of first-degree murder, 4 sets of unidentified remains, and the expectation there could be more.
We'll keep going as long as we keep uncovering evidence, whether that's weeks down the road, months down the road, or years down the road. But we're not going to leave anything uncovered.
It's such an interesting case, Joanna, and it's good to see all those details put together to try and get a sense of how vast it is. What should we look for in terms of what's to come in the weeks ahead?
Well, there's no official updates expected anytime soon, but as the weather warms up, police plan to go back to the property where the remains were found in those planters and to 30 other properties where MacArthur worked as a landscaper. The frozen ground has made it really hard for K-9 units to pick up scents reliably or for officers to dig, and police are interested in digging at least 3 of those locations. So it's likely more evidence against MacArthur will be unearthed. And then we also have to think back to the fact that there are all these cold cases that they're looking into, and so all that makes it very difficult to put a timeline on this investigation.
Okay, Joanna, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
In the House of Commons today, the exoneration of 6 BC First Nations chiefs, 150 years after they were convicted and hanged. At the time, they were called murderers in the deaths of 14 white colonists in BC. And this afternoon, their descendants were on hand to hear the Prime Minister apologize.
the day our government acknowledges, but the colonial government of the day was unwilling to accept, that these 6 chiefs were leaders and warriors of the Chilcotin Nation.
Before Confederation in 1864, chiefs from the Chilcotin First Nation went to peace talks with European settlers, thinking it was the end of war and infringement on their land. Instead, they were tried, convicted, and hanged.
The Chief Clatasain, Chief Biyil.
More than 150 years later, all 6 have been exonerated.
And Chief Faun are fully exonerated of any crime or wrongdoing.
As the exoneration and apology came to an end, the chiefs on the floor of the House of Commons turned their vests from black to red to represent rebirth and renewal.
Canada has a chance and opportunity to be a role model to all countries with Indigenous people, and that's what this is about. It's a new way of doing things. It's a better way of doing things. It includes all of us.
A 200-yard stroll separates the U.S. and Russia at Expo. This is an easy location for that fascinating comparison that thousands make here each day, sometimes waiting an hour in line to do it. The Russians seem determined to show the visitor as much as possible. One official told me, everyone knows what America can do. We have to show what we can do. And it's all here, from atomic icebreakers to power stations. There's a plush restaurant, too. Caviar, vodka, borscht, smoked salmon, and just about every day, a stage show. This one, an Estonian group showing that music knows no boundaries. The most impressive part of the American approach is the pavilion building itself. Inside, secure in their industrial achievements and efficiency, the Americans seem to say, you know what we can do. This is just for fun. So there's cowboys, Indians, rag dolls, movie stars, Elvis Presley's guitar, Debbie Reynolds' bed, vinyl-skirted hostesses, and the longest escalator in the world. The one really serious note is an impressive display of space achievements. It's a fresh, light-hearted approach, with a mini-rail running zanily through the middle, but it leaves some visitors feeling vaguely unfulfilled. The Russian pavilion, by comparison, is impressive, but some complain ponderous and overbearing. Whatever their reaction, most people feel they just have to see both. Terry Hargreave, CBC News at Expo 67.
Welcome to Expo 67, to Man and His World. This is the Canadian Pavilion. Canada is a complex country, diverse in heritage, and the pavilion is a reflection of this diversity. Doesn't tell the whole story of what we are,
Something old is coming to your TV. A wave of classic shows is breaking into a pretty crowded landscape. But is creativity so bankrupt, it needs to cash in on nostalgia? These days, the TV schedule is full of old chestnuts that have been retooled and revamped for a new generation. Tomorrow night, the new Roseanne is making its debut. So what's going on here? The CBC's Salima Shivji unravels the reboot craze.
That voice, that laugh, both instantly recognizable. But this isn't the 90s. It's 2018, and Roseanne, along with her blue-collar family, is back on television.
Like with the volume turned up.
It's a delightful prospect for this self-described superfan who met Roseanne as a teenager.
The show like this that just takes everyday situations that have happened, you know, throughout generations and that are still happening now. It's going to be a fantastic show, and I think right now in this day and age, it's something that we need to see again.
Candyman's home, babe.
Ooh, my favorite drugs.
Roseanne is now a Trump supporter, causing tension in her TV family, but making her relevant to today's audience. Roseanne's return is just the latest in a series of reboots to hit the major networks, powered in part by the success of previous revived hits, including the new Will and Grace.
We thought it would be different, but this time we know it's going to be exactly the same.
We knew we could be these characters again. We knew these guys were going to write great stuff. I just feel like this has been a kind of a magic carpet ride, this reboot.
A magic carpet ride for the network, too. It's NBC's top comedy, a major win, which of course means there's more to come. Murphy Brown will be back after 20 years with the original cast. Remakes of Magnum P.I. and Cagney and Lacey have also been greenlit.
Putting all of these old shows back on your screens may seem desperate, but really, the traditional networks are focusing on their bottom lines.
We've got more channels now, we've got more streaming services, and they all want to make noise, and the quickest way to make noise is to bring back something that we all loved in our youth.
Oh my God. Bringing back the old hits means networks save on marketing costs, but it does cost more money to lure stars back to their old roles. And not just stars, writers and creators too.
I was like, oh yeah, I have to get this, I have to get this.
Rachel Langer got the nod to help turn this cult Canadian kids show from the 90s
I intend to find out. Reboot!
into this.
Guardians.
For her, the rash of reboots has major benefits for writers who are sometimes not even involved the second time around.
If you have made the right kind of deal, basically, you know, being able to kind of make a living from something that you made a long time ago and see it come back and be revised and be renewed and refreshed.
The key is remaining fresh. One way to go is to reimagine a Canadian hit in animated form.
It just felt like Corner Gas, but with a fresh, new kind of vibe to it.
Giving strength to the old adage, everything old is new again. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Toronto.
They are trying to come to Canada. He is hoping to bring Canadians to them. Coming up, our moment of the day, how virtual reality is recreating what asylum seekers experience at the Roxham Road border crossing. We hear from the Montreal-based photographer behind the project.
We seem to be consumed with this notion of fat-free. Our diets have to be leaner, our organizations meaner. But after a decade of cutting and slashing, what are we left with? A lot of empty offices and empty promises. The recession, increased competition, and higher costs put a lot of pressure on organizations, and downsizing was going to be the magic bullet. But there's been growing evidence lately that downsizing is a dud. According to some surveys, at least half the companies that slashed their workforce did not improve their bottom line. In fact, most companies end up rehiring after firing. As a result, many business people are asking themselves, is there a downside to downsizing?
In terms of downsizing in particular, less than half of the companies succeeded in meeting cost reduction targets. Only 32% improved profits. They're finding that a lot of organizations have focused so much on downsizing that they've lost the focus on things like customer service, employee satisfaction, the other stakeholder variables that are critical to success.
Ron Capel preaches the perils of downsizing. This Toronto consultant warns anyone who will pay the price of admission to his seminars that downsizing can do damage. Instead of making an organization lean and mean, it can leave it lean and lame.
The easiest thing in the world is to take an organization chart and cross off boxes. What happens as a result is that organizations leave the people who remain overloaded, and the actual performance of the organization declines. Unless we start to confront some of that, it's going to be less likely that it will change.
Too many companies fly by the seat of their pants when it comes to cutting costs, says Ron Capel. These days, he spends a lot of time on the road making house calls, trying to cure the ills downsizing causes. Many of his clients are from private business, but more and more public sector managers are turning to Capel for advice on how to cut costs without cutting people.
Tonight on The National, the Kansas girl at the heart of a landmark case that ended racial segregation in U.S. schools has died. Linda Brown was in 3rd grade back in 1950 when she was blocked from enrolling at an all-white school. Her father and a handful of other families took their fight for equality all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they won. That ruling made racial segregation in public schools illegal. Brown died yesterday in the same city she was born, Topeka, Kansas. Also tonight, fallout from that deadly collision involving an Uber self-driving vehicle. The governor of Arizona has suspended the company's ability to test the cars on public roads in that state. It comes after police released video late last week of the 49-year-old woman being struck. In a statement tonight, the governor said he found the video disturbing. He said public safety should be a top priority and that what happened was a, quote, unquestionable failure.
I certainly understand people's frustration. I know people wanted the details as quickly as they could. We've been listening to British Columbians. We've been working on the details.
The BC government is making changes after weeks of criticism over a proposed property speculation tax. The tax plan was floated as a way to crack down on investors who buy up homes and then leave them empty. But some BC residents felt unfairly targeted. And now, as part of today's changes, fewer BC residents will have to pay up. One specific change, the tax won't apply to British Columbians with cabins and cottages, for example, in rural areas.
Roxham Road is where Quebec and New York State meet. It's also the busiest illegal border crossing. Just last year, 20,000 asylum seekers crossed over at that location. Michel Huneau spent several months capturing those very moments, and he's now turned his pictures into a virtual reality experience. And that is our moment of the day.
When you stand there, you're standing at the edge of the world. You're standing in a place where all the conflicts and crises are coming to you, and that's very powerful. So the Roxham Road in this virtual reality experience is it's an invitation to actually come to Roxham and see what happens when asylum seekers are showing up and starts interacting with the RCMP. You'll see the level of tension, the confusion, the hesitation, and the emotion that gets into each crossing.
Sorry, sir, you cannot come here. If you come out here, you're gonna be under arrest.
We've got a problem where we're coming from.
Do you
Please, we need assistance.
My
life is not safe. Please,
I recorded 180 crossings, but they came from 22 different countries. Once you've been there physically or virtually, once you experience those emotions, those moments, that tension, I think it increases your level of engagement and the subject.
So, you know, as you noticed there, he disguised people. He took away their identities. He edited the silhouettes, and he took these pictures of textiles that he had taken during the migrant crisis in Europe, and he placed them over the silhouettes. So that's what you're seeing there.
Yeah, well, and I got to say, I'm always intrigued by new ways of telling ongoing stories. And so folks can go to Montreal to see the exhibit in person. That's at the Phi Center, and then online, it's on the NFB website. People can see it there.
Cool.
And that's The National for this Monday, March 26th. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good night.